Welcome to Get Green, Northwest Indiana, your home for lawn care solutions with Steve Daly. Each podcast, you'll learn the secret tips to growing healthy green grass and best practice solutions for watering, weed and feed, aeration, and mowing. Here are your hosts, Steve Daly and Jim Jano.
Steve, you're trending. You're trending on Google.
I don't know what that means, Jano.
That means everybody's searching you these days. With your anniversary, your 50th anniversary, everybody seems to be searching you for your history, for your specials. But what we're finding is not everybody's finding you. Sometimes you're finding Perma-Green with a hyphen, and sometimes you're not. So, Steve, today we're going to talk about Perma-Green versus Perma-Green. What's the difference? Steve, what is the difference?
Perma-Green is a lawn care company. Perma-Green is a spreader manufacturer for applying fertilizer products.
So one is Perma-Green hyphen that does lawn care, and the other one is Perma-Green no hyphen with the word Supreme afterwards.
Correct, yeah. Supreme is their technical name, but they use Perma-Green straight across the board with no hyphen in it as their name.
As their brand?
Yeah. As their brand, yeah, that's the word I'm looking for.
You have a common ancestry, common roots. But what's really confusing is when somebody's searching Perma-Green, AI's not figuring it out, because when somebody searches Perma-Green without the hyphen, the Perma-Green Supreme shows up, but if they put lawn care or Northwest Indiana after their name, you show up. So everybody seems to be confused. So let's get back to how you guys started, what your similarities are, and what's different about you guys. So where did you guys start?
The company started in 1974, so that indicates your 50 years. It started as Perma-Green, that's the company, as a lawn care company. That's all we did was lawn care services. I wasn't a part of that. I was 8 years old, so that would not put me here at that time. But
back then, lawn care was in its infant stages. What did the world look like back then compared to now? I mean, back then, that was even before people had Game Boys and those little football devices, and technology's come a long way.
Oh, I had those football devices about 4 years later, though. I love that thing. Little Mattel football is always good. As far as coming a long way or what, I lost track. I got sidetracked with the football. What do you got now?
Well, all right, so back then, you were telling me earlier that you guys use Perma-Green Supremes spreaders, and you like to talk about the advantage, and we'll talk a little bit about that later. But back then, you didn't even have one of those push spreaders. What was it like back then for fertilizer?
No, I mean, you had push spreaders. They were coming out, but most of the lawns are sprayed. It was all liquid fertilizer, liquid weed controls most of the time. My former boss, Butch, and Tom Justin could tell you a lot more about that than I could. But they would do big tanks, huge tanker trucks, and walk the lawns every day. They would do it just a little bit different. As far as speed and nimbleness of the industry and the perception of things changed over the years. So dry fertilizers became more and more prevalent.
So they didn't use the kind that you get in a bag that you can never read the bag because the print's so small?
Not on a normal basis. I'm sure at times they did, like maybe on winters. I don't really know because I wasn't there. But liquids were more prevalent as far as the main way of delivering. And some companies still do liquid, and that's the way they like to do it. We like to do it in a dry formulation so people can water it in differently. But that's preference. People prefer how they, prefer things, and I like to deliver it in a dry formulation.
What's kind of cool is Perma-Green, the original Perma-Green with the hyphen, it kind of grew up with the lawn care industry and Valpo at the same time, and so a lot of the changes, the Perma-Green, which is now two different Perma-Greens, they evolved with it, where your boss, Butch, was more of on the growing side, and Tom Justin was more on the equipment side. He's more about efficiency. Is that correct?
Tom was always tinkering. That was kind of his thing, from what I understand, and the history of it, and why they ended up going their different ways. Is Tom wanted to do more with equipment, and Bush just wanted to do the lawn care, and so that's kind of how they went their separate ways. And Tom went off and he took the Lake County accounts, so he was still doing lawn care.
Oh, okay.
All right, but at that point, Perma-Green Supreme then formed, okay? And basically it was the same name formulation, Perma-Green and Perma-Green Supreme. So it was just Tom took Lake County, Butch took Porter County, we moved on from there.
So water finds its way, and so does Perma-Green.
I guess. As time went on and they got further down the road, probably early mid-90s, if I do recall the time frame, it reached a point where Perma-Green Supreme no longer wanted to do lawn care because they were successful selling spray tanks and spreader sprayers that they were using. So that's when, at that juncture, is when we actually started servicing lawns in Lake County again as Perma-Green, the original company. And then Tom evolved through that on his equipment side to become basically just, Perma without a hyphen green. So
the brands kind of went their own way.
Yeah.
But typical of Perma-Green and the culture that you came from, you're a team player. And the one thing I've noticed is that you get the best people because people love working for a team. But it's your people that brag most about what you've done with Perma-Green, and they like to talk about what you've done with the team concept. But it's the hometown values. Even though you've become a technological leader as far as using Perma-Green Supreme's equipment to help save the customer money by being more efficient, to using the best chemicals that are more environmentally correct and do a better job, you're always looking forward, but you always like to bring up your history and your past and working as a team. And with Perma-Green Supreme, you still work as a team because you buy their equipment, you use it, and it helps your customers, and you help Supreme because they got great input from you.
Well, we also help test some things when they ask.
And you buy a lot of equipment too. That can't hurt.
We'll take some of it. I mean, they're nationwide. They're selling a lot of machines, and they do a very good job. And really, we're pretty much can be a guinea pig for them. We'll try out their new machines and see and try to give them feedback on what we think and where they can try to improve durability. Or
getting back to the history of the company, so fertilizing has changed quite a bit, and there's different approaches to it and stuff. But what about weed control? Weed control has changed a lot over the years.
Yeah, but you still use your three-way weed controls quite a bit too. It depends on what you're trying to control. There's a lot of newer technology over the years. You got things to control nutsedge. You got things to control like bent grass in a bluegrass lawn. There's all sorts of different products out there that are at your fingertips. So yeah, there's always something that you're reaching for that's hopefully either A, more environmentally safe, or B, more effective. And so you're always going through different varieties of chemicals and different things to try to improve what you're doing. I mean, at the bottom line, you're just trying to give people the best lawn you can.
So a lot of ways, fertilizers and weed controls haven't changed significantly over the years.
Fertilizers, I mean, no, their technology is pretty standard. I mean, there's some things that are going on.
So basically, any way you look at it, you're feeding nutrients to your soil.
But,
how far can that go?
Synthetic versus an organic, there's different ways they react and different things they do. But there's ways of like our next round coming up. For example, I'm going to use a synthetic fertilizer base, but have organic material mixed into it. So
kind of a hybrid.
Yeah, and it's just a way of not just, all right, I'm going to run Milorgnite product. I'm going to use Milorgnite product mixed in with my regular fertilizer blends to try to provide some different variables, some longer term things in the soil and the plant. So it's just a way of incorporating some bios into my program.
Now, my first
year, especially in
year,
a year like this, where it's just been absolutely. I mean, people think all this rain's good, and it would be good if it was spread out. And the warmer temperatures. I mean, it hasn't been a hot spring, but overall, all the balances from December of last year all through this spring, temperatures are up. February's up 10 degrees. March was up 5. April's up 5, I think. May was still warmer, 3 or 4 degrees. So when you start adding that up over time, the things that haven't happened is we haven't reached a point where we've ever froze out last year's populations of different insects, or that would normally have a deep freeze would have, or deep frost would have effects on these things. We didn't have that.
And you had told me before we got started, you had a meeting with somebody, and they were talking about how diseases are going to be a problem this year from that.
The county extension agent, Nikki Witkowski, and we were discussing basically how this year's been so mild, and diseases are really popping up everywhere, and turf and plants, everything, because the environment's changing, unfortunately, for us, I think, around here.
Now, a couple of years ago, we had the dreaded army worms, and you switched gears, and you went from the traditional treatment to a treatment that you said covers more areas and also is better for the environment. Is that going to put you in a good position this year for your customers, that you made that shift a couple of years ago?
Oh, yeah. I mean, acetylprin's a low use rate, very effective broad spectrum insect control. It does a number of things as far as controls against a lot of different turf feeding insects. So it helps us. We don't have to worry about some things so much, and make sure that your turf's protected.
And you pay more for that, but yet you absorb the cost because it's the right thing to do. And as one of your customers, I couldn't be happier to know that I've got a little bit more resistance to what might be coming our way.
Yeah, I mean, you're just trying to make sure that your bases are covered, and sometimes new things pop up you can't foresee, and you deal with it when it comes. But anything you can prepare for and be ready for, you just do.
Well, and I think the next thing on your blog that talks about the history is pesticides, and we just kind of covered that, but that's where we have seen a lot of innovation and a lot of changes. And I know that you're very conscientious about adhering to basically standards that protect people in their homes. How has pesticides changed?
Well, first of all, I mean, on the whole, if you don't have to, once you get a lawn cleaned up and you get rid of the weeds present, the best practice is just to apply only where you need to apply.
Because a strong lawn
keeps out most weeds. Yeah, and then you're just treating what pops in and what you're dealing with. And a lot of people go, well, all right, so you're saying you came out and you just fertilized and spot sprayed. Do I get a discount on that? No, it's a service you're paying for. It's not.
Would you rather have your yard die because you got all your money's worth out of it?
I wouldn't go that far, but is there any need to stress turf to spray something that isn't there because you're not going to control it?
Dang it, I paid for a full gallon. I want a full gallon.
That's the concept sometimes, and it's crazy. You pay to try to have your lawn look as nice as possible, and that's what we're trying to do. But the technologies have blown up over the last several years. I mean, we got so many products available to us for different controls, and we run into tougher to control weeds, and we got things we can grab.
Well, and here's something for you that you did as part of your 50th anniversary. You gave all your full season clients grass growth regulators, and you said the reason for that was to store energy so that you're ready for diseases and drought and everything else. Is that going to come to fruition? Are we going to see benefits from having grass?
Well, the funny thing is it rained so much that the growth regulators only slowed things up for maybe a couple of weeks.
I know.
And so we kept getting the rain behind it, and without just continuing to go with regulators all throughout the course of the year, which could be done, but it could get quite pricey. At some point, it was an idea that I thought we could slow it down if we were in a normal spring. We did slow it down temporarily.
Oh, yeah. It was great at first.
But then things just went poof. So, diseases because of the pressure, the regulator might have helped some lawns with it, but I don't know that overall, unless we continue through with a full program of it and finding people willing to do that. Now, the funny thing is we sprayed it on a couple of people's lawns. They're like, I haven't mowed my lawn in 10, 12 days. Okay, that's great. No, I like mowing my lawn every 3 days. So, there was a few people.
So there's always people you can't please.
Yeah, there's people that didn't want it. They didn't know it, they didn't understand it at the time, but when they actually called in once their grass slowed down. So.
Well, I thought it was amazing because my lawn care guy, he pushes me hard, and he told me I had to get a tune-up on my lawnmower and change the blade and everything. So I was putting it off because I couldn't get in. And I'm like, oh, this is great. It's raining every day, but my yard's perfect looking, and I don't have to cut my lawn. That was awesome for like 3 weeks. And for the first 3 weeks, I was singing you praise. Then I was cutting my lawn every 5 days, 4 days.
Back to it. Yeah, I mean,
unfortunately, I got my lawnmower fixed, so the new blade helped.
Growth regulators are lasting 3, 4, 5 weeks, 6 weeks max.
That was nice while it lasted.
Yeah, it wasn't gonna be the beat all end all to never mow again unless you continue on with it, and that's something that it could be done, and it's something to consider. But at this juncture, this was just more of an experiment for that time frame.
But it stands to reason though that what its biggest benefit was, it wasn't actually for reducing the amount of mowing you have to do, but to store energy to be ready for the adversity of Northwest Indiana's tough weather and bugs and
that was
diseases.
The idea. Unfortunately, Mother Nature had a different idea and gave us a little more than. I mean, it happened a few years back. Now, hopefully, we don't go into like the wicked 90-degree crap right away. About 4 years back, we had about the same amount of rain in the spring. We had about 14 inches over the course of 3 months. Unfortunately, June 1st rolled around and it went from 55, 60 degrees every day with rain to 95 degrees, and it didn't let up for like 3 weeks. It was like 90 to 95 for 2 weeks straight, and then it subsided, and then it went right back to 90. And June was a nightmare because everything just went brown quickly. You went from having beautiful green lawns to, oh no, And
I'm sure the phones were ringing.
Oh yeah. And that's kind of, we're getting a little bit of that now because just there's spots in every lawn. I could look at any lawn right now and see a leaf spot from 300 feet away.
The thing about that is that comes full circle back to how AI doesn't necessarily have answers, and they can't even get right the different permagreens and different. But you, as advanced as you are with your equipment and your applications and stuff, you go old school when it comes to your team. When somebody does have a problem, you have real people that answer that call and understand and care. And I think that's one of the coolest things. I've never called Perma-Green and not had somebody friendly answer the phone. And that's rare these days.
Yeah, you try to do the best you can. Not all conversations go the way you like.
Well, that's business.
That's business.
Just look at Facebook and look at what people are saying, and obviously some people just aren't happy.
Well, you just do what you can do. And we try to, again, I think I've said it in the past, is when we pick up the phone, we're picking up the phone and you're talking to somebody that's here, local. You get a voice, you don't get a recording. I mean, unless you're calling after hours, which you expect that. But somebody trying to talk to you, people get agitated sometimes when you're asking questions. All right, my lawn's brown. Well, did you do this? Are you doing that? it's not about whether we're trying to place a blame. People think you're trying to. It's not. I'm trying to get information.
Trying to find the symptoms of the problem so you can know how to fix it.
Correct, yeah. So you can try to figure out what's been taking place. I mean, we don't live at that property.
Right.
We're not there. We go there once every, say, 6-7 weeks, and there we are. The idea is that you hope you're not walking up on something that, is disease-ridden or this or that, or you're trying to hopefully walk up on the same lawn you left 6 weeks ago to look great. But sometimes that's not the case.
Well, it's like it's like a pet. A pet can be healthy one day and get a virus, and 3 days later look horrible.
Pet, human being, whatever.
So what do you do? You have to look at the symptoms.
Grass plant, flower. All those plants are showing. When it comes to plants, they're showing issues because they're under some. Excess water can be just as bad as no water,
right?
To some degree, if things are wet all the time and they're incubating diseases, and there's certain diseases, say, like zinnias. Zinnias can look like crap in a heartbeat,
right?
And it comes down to, all right, well, it rained 18 days last month or whatever, and there's no sunlight, there's no this, so that what did you think might happen there? And lawns are the same way. The sun will come out for a few days, things will start to perk up. Most lawns will recover just fine, and some will have some issues, but that's kind of what goes on every year, so there's no surprise to it.
So now you use advanced applications and what have you, but a lot of it comes down to execution. And let's show a little bit of love for Perma-Green Supreme, because you use their equipment, and that equipment, you've mentioned in the past, allows you to be more efficient. It allows you to save money for your customers because you're getting it done faster. It's less damaging to your yard. There's just a lot of advantages. Let's talk a little bit about Perma-Green Supreme and their history. Now, they broke off. When did they branch off? Do you know what year they split from the original Perma-Green?
I think it was sometime in the early 80s. That's what, because that's before I was there. That's not my time frame. I didn't get to Perma-Green until 1989, so I wasn't there for their split. And I don't, that's nothing I know a whole lot about, to be honest with you, other than the fact that I know that Tom was really interested in developing his equipment, that he had, because he was innovative. He was, that spreader sprayer thing, that's all him.
Now, he was one of the first in the country with that, correct?
Yes, he was.
Wow. And that's right out of beautiful Northwest Indiana.
Yep. And, and it evolved, trust me. I was a guinea pig for a lot of his tinkering, but over the years, he got it to where he wanted it to be, and it's quite the success story. So.
Well, and in my early years, right out of school, I worked for an automotive corporation, and I had my finger on a pulse of why some companies are successful and others failed. And the companies that were miserable in the late 80s, early 90s were the ones that put product out without testing it. And the companies that were successful tested, then they brought it out. So when it was in the market, it worked. And that seems to be part of the beauty of your relationship with Perma-Green Supreme is they put out some great product, but you can give them real-time feedback. And I was at one of your shoots once, and you guys are shooting some new equipment that they had. I thought that was kind of cool. It'd be right there, grassroots, seeing it all happen.
Yeah, I think it's just a variation on the equipment. Actually, it wasn't even a new piece of machinery. It was the same machine that it just as it upgraded and altered. That was a few years back.
We actually shot that video, and it's now on your banner. It has your daughter as a technician in it. So, and we just refreshed your website. So, if anybody wants to see a cool video of that shoot, it's in your banner, and it's at where can they find that website?
Perma-Green.com. www.perma-green.com.
And we've talked a little bit about Tom Justin, but you want to show a little bit of love for Butch Shiplove. I know he was not just your mentor, your former boss, but he was a friend, and I know you still have a great relationship with him. Tell us a little bit about him.
Just a great guy. I mean, he cares about people, and he makes sure that he tries to make sure his people are taken care of. As far as when they started it, it was him. It was his idea to get. He came back from college. He had worked for one of the national competitors at the time, and decided to start his own business here. And they formed a partnership and off Butch rolled. And without him, wouldn't be here today. So I mean,
there must have been something in that water that they're drinking in Valpo back in 1974, because there's a lot of talent that came out of that company.
I mean, it's really amazing, and I'm fortunate that I grew with the company and was able to
take the baton and run with it.
Succeed a little bit.
You stand on the shoulders of those that came before you, and now you're passing it on to the next generation with their family business. And
not yet, man. I'm not going anywhere yet. I'm good for several more years.
So one more time.
As far as I know, anyway. God might have a different plan, but as far as I'm concerned right now, I'm good for a while.
So Steve, one more time, tell us where can they learn more about Perma-Green?
www.perma-green.com.
Well, Steve, thanks for sharing your history of Perma-Green and helping us understand the difference between Perma-Green and Perma-Green. Thanks, Steve.
Have a great day, Jen.
Happy Green Lawns, everybody.